Hi, my name is Rachel Duplessis and this is my lamp explanation. On day 1 I had to figure out the pattern I wanted for the base and square off each piece at 13 centimeters. Once all the base pieces were cut to the correct size, the 2 center pieces had to be cut at an angle for the upright to fit in between. The upright consisted of the exact same pieces of wood as the 2 center pieces. This would eventually lead to a clean and aesthetically pleasing finish. So this is the upright and this is the base. So these are the 2 center pieces of wood that I was talking about. So I said it was going to be connected, so you can see it's the same wood traveling all the way through. So at the end of day 1 I glued all the pieces together and clamped it in to make sure everything stayed where it needed to be. On day 2 we started off with sanding down the base to square off all the edges and make them as flat as possible. Once I was satisfied with the base, I moved on to the upright and routed out a channel along the inside of one of the 2 pieces of wood. This channel would later be the space for the wires to travel to get to the light at the top. At the end where the upright would be attached to the base, the channel had to be routed inward to make it easier for the wires to enter this channel from the base. I then moved on to route out a rectangular hole underneath the base. This space would later be used for the power source and switches to be placed and hidden away safely. I decided to use the same wood for the top and bottom of the light and for the bottom of the base to close it off. I measured an 11 by 13 centimeter rectangle for the base and 2 13 by 9 centimeter rectangles for the lamp head. I cut these pieces out using a jigsaw. Taking a different piece of wood for the center of the 2 pieces of wood for the lamp head, I measured 9 by 13 centimeters again and cut it out. I then just used a glue gun to stick these 3 pieces together and square off all the edges before I used any permanent glue. Once the edges were square, I made pilot holes in each corner of the bottom of the lamp head and then proceeded to drill in the screws for each hole. I separated all 3 pieces. The lights that I used had a metal cover over them, so I used this cover as a template to route out a space for these lights and the cover to fit in. I did this on both sides of the thick centerpiece of wood. My idea for this lamp was to create 2 separate lights, one below for studying, which would just be a normal whole rectangle, nothing special, and another one above, which would be a whole lot of different holes that would just make a pretty pattern on the ceiling. Each of these lights has their own circuit, so you can choose whether you want just the one light on or the other one on, or both of them on at the same time. It's up to you. So that's why I use 2 different circuits so that you can choose which ones you want. Day 3 started off with me trying to figure out the correct measurements and angles to cut off the upright to slip perfectly into the lamp head. Once all the lines were made, it was time to cut them off using a Japanese handsaw. This saw allowed precision work and accuracy. To finish off day 3 was a long process of figuring out how the wires for the light would fit in. Unfortunately, before I got it right, my smart self decided to plug it in while being on top of a foil surface. This then led to the power source short-circuiting and me having to start all over again. Which was fine because the new power source I found was a lot easier and smaller to work with, leaving more room in the base for the switches. Eventually I had set up one of the circuits and got rid of the foil surface before I tested if I had connected everything correctly or not. To my surprise, everything was connected perfectly and the light switched on and off by the flick of the switch. The last day, day 4, started with just sanding everything down to perfection. This process took a while, but eventually all edges were squared and everything connected perfectly. The only thing left to do was add the wires to make 2 circuits, connect the circuits, test to make sure everything worked, screw everything together and oil the lamp for a polished finish. Easy, think again. Let's talk about the circuits. I started by screwing in the switches and using a glue gun to stick down the power source. I then removed a centimeter of insulation at the end of each wire. I pushed 2 positive wires and 1 negative wire down the upright. I then made all the necessary connections, positive to negative and vice versa, and started soldering them together. I had to then use shrink wrap over these connections to make sure the circuit wouldn't short circuit. After a lengthy process of fitting everything together, it was time to glue gun everything in place. Once I tested it and everything was good to go, I screwed everything together and started oiling the lamp. This gave it a beautiful finish and really made the colors pop. And that is my lamp.